You already know what you need to do. That's the uncomfortable truth that most financial advice refuses to acknowledge. You've heard it all before. Invest early, start the business, build your network, negotiate better. These aren't secrets. They're not hidden in some ancient text or whispered in exclusive circles. You've known them for years, maybe even decades. So why hasn't anything changed? Why does knowing what to do rarely translate into actually doing it? The financial education industry has spent billions convincing people that the problem is ignorance. Another podcast, another book, another course, as if one more piece of information would finally unlock the door. But information was never the issue. The issue is something far more insidious. It's delay. People know what to do, and then they wait. They wait for more money, they wait for the right timing, they wait until they feel confident enough, safe enough, ready enough. And what almost nobody understands is that waiting is not neutral. It feels harmless because nothing dramatic seems to happen while you postpone. But financially, every year of delay is a decision to pay compound interest on hesitation instead of collecting compound interest on action. Compound interest doesn't care why you delayed. It doesn't pause because you were confused, anxious, or cautious. It keeps moving, whether you participate or not. This isn't really about 7 financial moves. It's about timing, because the difference between people who build wealth and people who merely understand wealth is rarely intelligence or talent. It's the exact date when action replaced intention. And before we get into the moves themselves, you need to understand the framework underneath all of this. Conventional advice never explains why people who fully understand these ideas still fail to act while it matters most. The answer is simple. Human beings are terrible at emotionally understanding exponential growth. Intellectually, we grasp compound interest. We nod along when someone explains it, but emotionally, almost nobody truly feels it, because exponential growth is deceptive. In the beginning, it looks flat. It feels slow, insignificant, like nothing is happening. And during that early stage, the person building something often feels stupid. The investor feels impatient. The entrepreneur feels invisible. The creator feels ignored. That's the psychological trap. When growth is still in its early phase, reality gives almost no emotional reward for consistency. So people quit during the exact stage where persistence matters most, not because they're lazy, but because the brain struggles to trust a process before visible results appear. The numbers, however, do not care about human emotion. Take something simple. If someone invests $10,000 at age 25 with an 8% annual return and leaves it untouched until age 65, it becomes roughly $217,000. The same $10,000 invested at age 35 becomes around $100,000. Same amount, same market, same return rate, just a 10-year difference, yet the outcome is more than double. That decade barely feels important when you're young, but decades later, the cost becomes massive. And this pattern extends far beyond investing. Every skill compounds, every relationship compounds, every business compounds, every reputation compounds. The skill you build early turns into expertise later. The network you build early becomes opportunities later. The business you start early gains years of iteration that nobody else can shortcut. Everything that compounds rewards early action and punishes delay, without emotion, without negotiation, without apology. Two people can discover the exact same opportunity at the exact same moment. One acts immediately, the other waits for better conditions. At first, they look identical, but 10 years later, the gap between them becomes structural. Once compound growth creates that gap, effort alone usually cannot close it, because effort cannot buy back time. Now, let's talk about the first move. Invest before you feel ready. Readiness is one of the most dangerous illusions in finance. Most people assume there will eventually come a moment where investing suddenly feels comfortable, a point where uncertainty disappears and confidence finally arrives. That moment almost never comes. The target keeps moving. At first, you think, I'll start when I make more money. Then you make more money and suddenly the standard changes. I need a larger emergency fund first. I need more knowledge. I should wait for a better market. The horizon keeps moving forward. Meanwhile, time keeps moving too. While you wait for certainty, the market continues compounding for people who entered imperfectly. Waiting does not preserve your position. Inflation quietly erodes uninvested money every single year. Someone delaying for 5 years is not starting from neutral, they're starting from behind. The beginner who knows almost nothing often invests early through simplicity. Meanwhile, the over-informed person studies every market risk, every crash, every recession, and waits for perfect conditions that never arrive. 30 years later, the simple investor often wins, not because they were smarter, but because they started sooner. The second move, build the skill before you need the income. Most people wait too long to develop valuable skills because they only begin learning when financial pressure forces them to. When someone builds a skill under pressure, the goal becomes survival. They are not learning deeply, they're learning urgently. They need results immediately, income immediately, competence fast enough to escape discomfort. The result is usually functional competence, just enough ability to get hired or land clients, but rarely enough mastery to create real leverage. Now, compare that to someone who builds a skill before they desperately need money from it. That person learns differently. They have time to explore deeply. They can fail without panic. They can experiment without immediate consequences. They can improve beyond basic competence. A skill developed at 25 has decades to evolve through repetition. Every year of applying the skill improves judgment. Better judgment produces better outcomes. Better outcomes create reputation. Reputation attracts higher value opportunities, and that cycle compounds. Someone who begins building a valuable skill at 45 still benefits, but they have fewer years for that compounding cycle to operate. The third move, start the business before the perfect idea arrives. Most people think successful businesses begin with brilliant ideas. They imagine founders suddenly discovering some flawless concept that immediately transforms into success. That's not how most businesses actually work. The majority of successful businesses are simply evolved versions of imperfect beginnings. The original idea changes, the market changes, the product changes, the audience changes. What succeeds is usually not the first version, it's the version that survived enough real-world contact to improve. Business ideas do not improve primarily through thinking. They improve through execution, through launching, failing, adjusting, and surviving contact with reality. That's why early action matters so much, because what early action really gives you is iteration time. Someone who starts an imperfect business at 25 may spend years making mistakes, but by 35, they've accumulated operational experience, market instincts, and risk tolerance that cannot be learned from theory alone. While the person who waited 10 years searching for the perfect idea often arrives later with more caution, more obligations, and far less tolerance for risk.
The fourth move, build the network before you need it. Most people misunderstand networking because they treat it like emergency problem solving. They reach out only when they need opportunities, jobs, or clients. But relationships built under urgency feel completely different from relationships built gradually over time. Someone contacting you only when they need something creates a transactional dynamic immediately. But someone who has spent years building genuine relationships creates trust differently. Trust compounds through time. A person who has known you consistently for 10 years understands your character in a way that no short interaction can replicate. A real network is accumulated reputation, the distributed understanding of who you are, what you can do, and what people can trust you with. That builds slowly. One conversation changes almost nothing. What compounds is repeated interaction across time. And this becomes incredibly valuable later in life because opportunities often move through trust long before they move through resumes or applications. The fifth move, negotiate every compensation every single time. Most people treat salary negotiation like a small, awkward conversation. But one unnegotiated conversation can affect the next 30 years of your life. A lower starting salary becomes the base for future raises, bonuses, and offers. Every percentage increase later gets calculated from a smaller number. A $5,000 difference at the beginning of a career may eventually turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost lifetime income, not because of one conversation, but because of the compounding effect of every conversation after it. The person who negotiates early develops confidence, language, positioning, and emotional control. The person who avoids negotiation often stays inexperienced far longer than necessary. The sixth move: protect the downside before the upside exists. Most people think protection becomes important after success arrives, after the assets, after the income, after the business growth. But by then, many risks have already become far more expensive to manage. A single medical crisis, a lawsuit, an unexpected liability, any of these can erase years of progress. That's why downside protection matters so much earlier than people assume. The person who gets financially destroyed at 35 may spend the next decade simply trying to recover to zero. During those recovery years, compound growth disappears completely. Insurance is easier before health problems appear. Legal structures are easier before liabilities grow. Asset protection is easier before assets become complicated. The seventh and final move: redefine your relationship with money before your income peaks. This is the deepest move of all because it sits underneath every other financial decision. Most people think they have money problems. Often they actually have relationship problems with money itself. Childhood environments shape financial psychology in ways most people never consciously examine. Scarcity, fear, anxiety, avoidance, shame. These patterns become internal operating systems running silently underneath adult behavior. Unless they are examined, they continue influencing decisions automatically. The person raised around scarcity may sabotage wealth unconsciously because financial stress feels psychologically familiar. The person raised around anxiety may avoid investments entirely because uncertainty triggers emotional discomfort. The person believing money corrupts people may unconsciously resist financial success. That's why relationship work matters before peak income arrives. Now, this is where Machiavelli becomes important. He understood something most people still struggle to accept. Opportunity has windows, and windows close. He famously wrote that occasions do not wait, not eventually, not later, not after you feel fully prepared. That idea connects directly to every financial move we've discussed. The investment window is most powerful when time is greatest. The skill-building window is strongest before urgency arrives. The entrepreneurial window is widest before obligations become overwhelming. The networking window compounds most aggressively when relationships begin early. The negotiation window matters most before decades of lower compensation accumulate. The protection window matters before disaster appears. The psychological window matters before peak income amplifies unresolved patterns. The waiting room is where people convince themselves they are preparing when they are actually delaying. Two mechanisms keep people trapped there. The first is conditional permission. I'll start investing when I save more money. I'll launch the business when the idea improves. The conditions sound reasonable, but most are self-reinforcing loops because the action itself is usually what creates the condition people are waiting for. Confidence comes from action. Leverage comes from action. Clarity comes from action. Experience comes from action. The second trap is the arrival fallacy, the belief that the future version of you will find these decisions easier than the current version. But future circumstances rarely remove discomfort. They usually replace old obstacles with new ones, more responsibilities, more lifestyle pressure, more fear of disruption. That brings us back to the core truth. This was never really about 7 financial moves. You already knew the moves. This was about timing, about understanding that every year of delay quietly subtracts compound growth from the final outcome. Every year spent waiting for perfect conditions becomes part of the cost. Some people genuinely face real constraints, but many others confuse discomfort with impossibility. The conditions are imperfect now. They will also be imperfect later. The only difference is that later comes with additional years of lost compounding attached to it. The person who acts imperfectly still moves forward. The person who waits perfectly usually stays where they are. In the end, the difference is rarely intelligence, talent, or information. It's the date, the exact date when action finally replaced intention. That date can still be today, but it can never be made earlier than today. And later, as always, is more expensive than it looks. If this shifted the way you see yourself, then don't stop here. Subscribe, because every video here is designed to sharpen your mindset, increase your value, and separate you from the crowd. No fluff, just strategy. Most people will watch and move on. A few will stay and change. Decide which one you are.